So what happened was, once again, the story goes, I was by myself, alone at Woodhall Hospital around 2005, March 2005, as a matter of fact. But actually, I went in there in February, Black History Month of 2005. But when the incident took place, it was now March 2005, where a group of Caribbean nurses injured my eye by a white woman standing in the threshold of psychiatry, starting an argument saying, "Jeffrey, you want to talk?" with red hair. And when I started talking to her, thinking I'm going to catch a break or somebody going to listen to me, she started going, mm-hmm, and more, mm-hmm. She kept interrupting my speech like I was a baby. And then she authorized me, once you lower your guard and they got you in this level, they start breaking you down. Some suspect to become a transsexual or a slave. But they only do it to me when I'm alone and by myself. Then they started the sexual reassignment by destroying my eyesight as a fully grown heterosexual man to make sure that I couldn't make things out, whether somebody was duking me up their ass or if I got to fight to protect myself. Those Caribbean women, two were Jamaican, one Haitian. And then they run into African American security, and that's what we take. They wanted to even threaten that if I didn't cooperate, they're going to tie me down. So they use a Korean guy. But anyway, after that, Nigel Ade, he's a Haitian dude we have a mutual friend, Shamela Durant, who died in the same fashion I did. Nigel Ade is Haitian. He's a PA at Woodhall Hospital from Uniondale. And after I was slumped over in a wheelchair, or slumped over as a result of that two injections, one to destroy my eyesight, the other one as though I was put on liquid crack to jumpstart a controlled substance life, which is cheating by the federal government. They found some people stupid enough to be a liability. But the thing about I tried to get a lawyer, they played a game on me. The lawyer that I hired to pacify me did just enough to make me think he was going to help me out. But anyway, as I'm overly drugged and also high on a liquid crack substance for the first time in my life, Nigel says, "Why don't you get a job?" Before they did that transfer to me upstairs, right? Then a female, black janitor female, stood over my wheelchair and said, "Do you feel lightheaded right now?" I don't know. I never understand why she did that. Like she knew the routine of what I was going through. That they put me on a crack cocaine substance, whether I like it or not, by FBI standard. Clean the goddamn problem up they set up top, and let's move on. You understand? But during that transfer to the psych ward, I call it the sanitation dumping grounds. After you fuck a person like me up and want it to go away, like a dumpster or a sanitation dump yard, just put my ass in psychiatry because I have a history and problem is solved. Typical hospital mentality when you want to get rid of trash and discard it at the value of human life to them. And that's what it was met with force or obstruction, which the woman on the PA system, thank God she had the African American accent at least, and said, "Where is his nurse's report?" Whatever. And the people started looking at each other about, the woman yelled, "Hey, you should know the policy. I cannot take on a patient without a nurse's report." You understand? She said, everybody knows before you do a transfer, those people got to know how to handle my health issues, if any. Why you transfer them? They wanted me to die, whatever the case was. You understand it? They keep thinking everything must go their way. They're not used to being caught or people of questioning their judgment. When they need somebody to believe I'm a drug addict or a problem, they need everybody fully on board with a lie. Remember I told you that story last week? And what happens is my stomach is fucked up. Something's going on with it. And at some point in time throughout that stay in psychiatry, it doesn't make a difference. One of the women wearing a bias unit badge that blew my mind for those 2 weeks I was upstairs to let me know my case is not being ignored at that point in time with the all-black Secret Service staff that I claimed, right? It's when my cousin Bill Greenwood started talking to me like dog shit, and the psychiatrist listened to the whole conversation as a Haitian doctor portraying, African American portraying that he's Haitian. And we had Bill Greenwood on the phone talking to me like I'm dirt shit. That was the first psychiatrist who said, why is his family doing this to this guy and not supporting him? That's Lorraine Greenwood's husband. But anyway, I told Bill, but anyway, the whole point is this, right? Then they wanted me to sign, let me tell you something, the African American woman on the intercom and everybody else, but they did it intentionally so I can have a case. Since you caused the issues for race war in America, people need to figure out how to counter and defuse that. So what they asked me was to basically make sure I repeated Jeffrey signed an admission into psychiatry. I basically said, hell fucking no. I didn't ask to be here. What I did ask for downstairs was a transfer back into my shelter, Peter Young. But the weekend they decided to ambush me, that Friday, the social worker, Latino man, said, your bed won't be ready until Monday. Therefore, over that weekend, they used a completely different staff to try to justify the misunderstanding or miscommunication, which is typical of hospitals. I just explained to Ashley last night or this morning that when the doctors go home, they do all kind of bullshit, write up a fake report to cover up the abuse and put it on the treating doctor the next morning when he gets the report. And he has to make a decision because he has a trusty staff he relies on. They've been doing this for years. But that weekend, I was dealing with a whole different character that's supposed to be the idea of justification that, like Ashley said to me, I'm new to this unit. Or the other woman said, I don't know what's been happening. I'm new around here. I've been hearing the same routine. Dr. Jacobs did the same shit. I'm used to it now. It doesn't, everything at your mouths does not surprise me. I've heard it before, over and over. And the only thing that happens is the abuse escalates. It doesn't stop. This is it. So what happens is, that's what the Secret Service did. They made a mockery out of the medication tables used with wheels and made jokes about them as to how these people are treating me here in New York State. They had some mafia guys come in from it looked like they was undercover to try to fix a light bulb that I think was purposely broken so they could come up there as plump, like, maintenance men with jeans and boots on, very curious to make sure I was being turned into a drug addict under George Pataki's administration. Point is, they kept trying to force me, but overly force me, to sign an intake form that I agreed that I belong in psychiatry. But they needed me to understand it for the record until the day I can fight this case. I said, hell no, you're not getting my signature. Then as I'm laying down in bed, when I was able to walk around without edema, they said that one of them flower power women, white women, who said, why don't you sign a document in the room by myself? She got so frustrated because I'm laying there and said, why don't you get off your ass and get up and get a job? I never forget that. After she left with that bullshit, with salt and pepper hair, old woman, right? A Chinese dude came in and said, Jerry, why don't you sign the intake form? I said, no. He logically said, you don't have to. And he ripped it up in front of my face. As of now, today, I cannot walk or run. I've been injured by resident doctors whose pride is hurting them because of that particular incident where I was transferred for somebody's record in government. They was all black, of black descent. Oh, that Florida took over for my protection from you, emotional EDP. You try to dump me off and throw me to a dump yard for lost souls, people that assume nobody gives an absolute fuck about us. You understand? In fact, it burns you alive when you find out I got somebody as a support system. I've been to this before, like Metropolitan Hospital, after I survived those rape attempts, after 8 months on that one floor. Me, I'm gonna admit to you, Stockholm Syndrome or not, me and staff became the best of buddies over the course of time. And matter of fact, they did something similar, like, you don't belong here. They started doing things to let me know this is a setup to cover up your abuse. They treated me like family. I mean, the last couple of days I was there at Metropolitan Hospital, I mean, absolute family, especially Chinese Miss Martin. And what happened was they had realized there is nothing wrong with you. When Dr. Santiago struck a deal after I survived those Puerto Ricans and a Dominican dude on 2 consecutive days who tried to take my manhood. And they thought they played on the idea that because the psychiatrist is Latino like them, that it was a holiday. But once again, my father was still alive and he worked for this called the bias unit. And he could also vouch for me about certain things. And that was the exchange me and Dr. Santiago had, who said, listen, for what them knuckleheads did, like a lot of old school Latinos, they have a problem with the young ones, like Jamaican men, who look at their young people like, yo, you gotta stop. They snap out of it when it's too late, when they grow up. And out of a courtesy, he said to me, Mr. Mars, yes, you can act like you're taking medication, as long as like you're looking like you're taking medication. I won't say nothing as long as you won't act up. And for 7 months, I lost a tremendous amount of weight. I did not take any medication. I've shared this story with people. Yeah, and then my friend Deacon Hardy, the very friend who's trying to save my life now, was always the one who saved my life. Him and his girlfriend Zena, after 8 months, worked out an agreement with Santiago to have me discharged into their care. Now this place is saying I lack the mental capacity to where they're the only ones that can address my special needs. We don't know where this shit comes from. Who made this determination? What head trauma did I experience that I'm not aware of anymore? You understand it? And then they forced through a guardianship case that they told me they've appointed somebody. My own lawyer from the state told me that, Rob Zeppelin, but there's no proof. They haven't presented no paperwork. And that's what's odd this time around. That means when they're lying like this, they cause an irreparable injury. You understand it? The doctors, and they know it. And they need me to lie and say, you inherited your genes the same way they said you cannot leave the hospital until you agree you're schizophrenic. They need to hear you say it and that you're going to take the medications. Then they will let you go when they feel confident. Now they're doing it here. We're not letting you go until you agree to the recommended treatment, which is dialysis, after they are the ones who installed this abuse and injury in me. And they don't know how to rationalize it and justify it. So, like usual, to be not to be a liability issue, if they could get me to change my mind around by keeping me detained. But you know what I mean? I already coughed and vomited up the blood, was supposed to make me say, okay, 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 I need dialysis. So the whole point is to kind of backtrack. When the white woman yelled, why don't you get up and get a job? When I refused to sign a intake document that would suggest I agreed that I need help. That's not what happened. In fact, the weekend when they destroyed my eyesight and put me on liquid crack, my cousin Larry McGregor, my cousin Loren's twin brother, who convinced me that he was working right down the street as a construction worker. We had agreed to go bring me a roll of quarters to be able to stay in contact with family. He promised me, Larry, down to the night before, I had said, oh, could I do this to people? Are you sure? And guess what? The hour that Larry McGregor Jr. was supposed to be handing me a roll of quarters, that's when staff destroyed and fucked my eyesight up. You understand? To cause a separation between me and my cousin Larry. And he might have used it as a way we could separate where he anticipated we're going to basically, maybe I'm going to die, I don't know. The very minute, down to the, because before Larry even came, when they heard my conversations, I told you, when they counter, I had no other visitors the whole time I was there. Up until the days before, talking to my cousin Larry through the social worker's phone that they would bring in the room, let me make 2 calls a day. And one of them was to Larry McGregor, and what they did was, when they counted to counter any perception Larry would have, and even mine, they put an orange bumper sticker on the door of my bedroom, like a fluorescent ones cops use when they impound your moped or one of your ATVs or something, right? That said, anybody who's visiting him, you must come to the front desk first. That wasn't giving me the sensation that I have HIV or like I'm a diseased man, me personally, or I'm dangerous. And that was for my cousin Larry if he decided to honor his words. And he never showed up. And that's part of the insult. It's supposed to be part of my imagination that anybody is going to show up on my behalf. And the moment my so-called cousin, that my brother James Mars Jr. said to my father, I don't think those people are our family. We don't know why my brother, the Hempstead cop, was even suggesting that shit after all these years. But still, my mother said some shit when she got fed up of being in that nursing home. And she told me to look into it and to ask my family. I spoke to Kimberly. She's the one that came up here without my approval. Well, Loren been signing documents on my behalf when the speculation is they're not really our family. We'll never know. You understand? So this is how they keep transferring me around due to a liability issue. I don't really got nobody. And they need to find somebody to take responsibility to deliver that blow. You understand? Which is attempted this morning when the nurse Melissa walked out of the room with that potassium package and opened it up out of my view. I've been there before with Karen Sacchetti, Central Nassau, and another Jewish doctor administering a needle syringe who tried to get me on that shit, to switch that shit around. Made sure I observed him opening up an unsealed box of Abilify. I said, oh, where you going? You understand it? They keep trying to play slick to abuse me where I can't prove it. This is how to say I'm paranoid, like I'm overreacting. Meanwhile, I have some serious issues with medication that I don't know what was in those bottles from unsealed boxes. And that's how they keep letting Europeans out of the gate try to kill and harm me at every twist and turn within their dwellings where the government is not in there with me. You understand? So the point is that the Chinese dude, after that woman yelled, get up. Now I cannot get up. I cannot move. My toes hurt. They're numb. I have a full case of edema. I cannot run anymore like I did in Hollywood. I can't do it. It has to be so fast for the movie with Mac Wilds, the HBO called In the Breaks or something. I was a celebrity superstar, an ex-football player, and look at me. I can't move. If you told me, get your ass up, I cannot do it. Which is why Lauren, the floor manager here yesterday, tried to get me to, if I can't get up and walk around, to talk to some students to have a record that everything is just fine. When I interview or speak to her interviewing students, just to have a record. After I survived the IV attack, and also had another issue yesterday with I'm talking about the other situation I had yesterday with the doctor, and it's still saying I can't leave and everything else. You understand? Imagine like an idiot trying to be Mr. Intelligent, us Marsmen like to speak, when I've been filing these complaints to have a transfer. And my same buddy, Deacon Hardy, cannot understand why they won't let me go or do anything, because they need to in here. So this morning they pulled that nonsense twice with a contaminated apple juice. And after that, they followed with the, whatever you call it, the malatoid, the potassium lower. But a nurse tried to get me to, she walked out the room with the package, opened it up, and then returned to the room to mix the solution. And that's how they keep trying to set up and rationalize why I died or what triggered some kind of a reaction. And here we still wait for who? The Justice Department. You understand? Anytime they say in this country, you have the credentials, you have a case. Do you know how many times I've been abused? Had my penis electrocuted, my eyes under psychiatry, and I've been saying it. You people are the wrong people to make any decisions on my behalf. It is a conflict of interest.